Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Kamban Sinclair. I'm a software engineer by training because I graduated from the University of Boya, Faculty of Engineering and Technology. And I'm currently um, working and running a few products here and there outside. So I have some products in the market that customers are using. So I'm like a maintainer and some kind of mentor and coach to some other teams. So today I'll be talking to you guys about building your minimum viable product with code tools. I don't know if it has already passed or if it's yet to come, but I think there's a session for building your MVP with no code tools. But for today's presentation or for today's workshop, we'll be looking at building your MVP, like essential techniques and strategies that you can put in place to effectively or successfully build your MVP using coding tools. To begin, let's just have a brief definition of what an MVP is, which we already know, a minimum viable product. So it's like a testing, a testing phase of your project or a testing phase of your product where you are not yet sure if you have product market fit, but you have a very good idea, which you think is a good idea, and you want to get it out there for others to use. Some people call it proof of concept. So you want to prove that the concept you have is actually applicable in the real world or is usable or is needed in the market. Because you can have something that's applicable, that's usable, but it's not needed. So people can actually touch it, they can use it, but they don't need it because they have better options or they have options which they are very comfortable with and they don't see any reason switching to what you are proposing to them. So a minimum viable product is something of that sort. But a few key things about a minimum viable product is that it's supposed or its main intention is to capture the core business idea or the core requirement, the core features of your solution. Think of a minimum viable product as the first version of a car which is not painted, does not have AC, does not have the decorations, the beauty, but it's just the structure and the tires and maybe some two-side mirrors just to show that we can have something that can move and carry people to their various destinations. So that's like what we are talking about. And today we'll be seeing how you can develop this minimum viable product with code tools. When you think about MVP development, there are a few things that should come to your mind, or there are some key things that you should have at the back of your mind. Remember that this minimum viable product is the small piece of a big uh, a big thing that you are thinking about. So you have an idea to build the next Facebook, for example. You will not just come to the market with Facebook, but you will come with something that presents the core idea, which is social networking. And because of that, there are at least three things which you have to put in place. You have to consider prototyping, user testing, and feedback loops. Now, prototyping is where I'll essentially dwell today because that's the part that concerns development or implementation, or the analysis, or the design, or the strategic thinking to bring the product to life. Testing and getting feedback and iterating on the idea are things that maybe we'll cover them or they will add in other workshops. But prototyping is what we will dwell on today. Prototyping can be done with no code or with coding tools. So I will be talking especially on prototyping with coding tools. I want to believe this is essentially for software developers because MVP is not specific to software development. I just thought of highlighting that fact. But in this presentation or in this workshop, we will consider only the software development domain or the product development domain, which is why we are talking about coding. In other fields, maybe robotics, maybe embedded systems or other domains, the development of the MVP is not essentially coding, but in our case, what we're talking about today is coding tools. Okay, now this is where I really want to dwell, because I think from the years of experience which I've acquired, these are some things that a serious developer, or let me say a tech entrepreneur, someone who has an idea and wants to get it out to the public, these are some few things you really have to pay attention to when thinking about your MVP, and especially when thinking how to bring that MVP to life with coding tools. The first thing you want to pay attention to is simplicity. Coding, first of all, is complicated. Yes, coding is complicated. I think everybody knows that. If you look at the AI models that we have today, the first benchmarks that most of these AI models are tested on is their ability to write or produce code, or their ability to solve coding problems. Because coding is a very difficult task. It's an art which it needs you to take time and learn it and understand and follow it. So when building your MVP, or when thinking to build your MVP with coding or with coding tools, the first thing you want to think about is simplicity. Sometimes developers fall into this trap of thinking so complex, and then they get overwhelmed and they fall short of their goals. Or those who don't get overwhelmed, they start implementing, and because complexity takes long to realize, they don't get to the market quickly. And before you realize, what you thought would take you a couple of months has taken you years or more, or many months, which you did not think about. So that's why I said the first thing to think about is simplicity. Embrace simplicity. When you even look at complexity itself, it starts from simplicity. If you want to, if you want to take a real world example, a duplex, or let's say a four bedroom apartment. When they started building that mansion, they did not start with 4 bedroom apartment. The day they dug the foundation, the first thing they did was to lay one block. So it was one block after the other. And as the blocks were being connected, that's how that complicated 4 bedroom apartment came to reality. If you think about it like that, as a tech entrepreneur, a developer, someone with very minimal resources, but wants to get their product to the market with coding tools, you will see that simplicity is something that will help you a lot. It will go a long way to help you. One of the reasons why sometimes developers fall into the trap of complexity is because, let's say you finish from your program right now, which you are going through in Ignite Studio, you get an internship, you go to a certain company, and when you get there, they assign you to a task. That task which they have given you is part of a big project, and maybe you are just there to create the forms, to write some HTML and CSS, to design the forms. Then another person on the back end takes the logic and connects it to that form, and another engineer connects that form to the back end, connects it to the cloud, and the whole product comes to life. The temptation of developers thinking complexity when they leave that kind of space is because they felt that the different pieces that other people were doing, they could do them all by themselves and assemble that massive product to and assemble it as their MVP, or assemble it to ship it to the market. That takes a lot of time, and that's a trap that many people have found themselves in. That's why I started by saying embrace simplicity when you are starting out to develop your your MVP with coding tools. The second thing you want to pay attention to is the tools that you use, because tools also will help determine how long, like how soon or how late you'll be able to finish with your MVP. There are tools which you get on the tools, or you start using the tools, then you realize that this was really a bad choice. Probably because you have to rewrite a few things, or there are many things which are missing in what you are trying to do. For example, Facebook is the model you want to put out there. You want to build something like Facebook that has many other complexity, many other exciting features. So the proof of concept, or the MVP, is to just build a social networking platform. Let me just build something that I can send you a message, I send you a photo, I send you a video, I receive it on the other side, I make a friend, I make a friend request, the friend request gets confirmed. If you want to start out with something like that, and you are not careful about the tools which you choose, you will either spend decades to build that product, or you will never even survive building that product. Say, for example, you decide to use just HTML and CSS. Initially, it will be very easy to start with, but on the long run, you'll find yourself having to build too many things just for a minimum viable product, which we are not even sure it is going to have product market fit. So the selection of tools is a very, very important aspect. Opt for tools that you are comfortable using and that can effectively address the issue on time. On time is very, very important. It's not enough to be comfortable using the tool, but it's also good that the tool that you are comfortable with can effectively address your issue on time. I've had practical examples, like real world scenarios with this kind of thing. I remember one time I was excited to build a laundry management platform. I had the whole idea mapped out, the database diagrams and everything. Oh, it was so nice. Now it was time for me to begin implementation. And I took a tool, Spring Boot is a Java framework. I started out with that tool. Well, I was excited because I felt I'm going to use that to learn the technology, the Spring Boot technology. But that was one of the errors which I made, and that dream never came to reality. Because when I started, it was so easy to follow along, but it got to a point where I did not know beyond the basics. And the framework did not come with the basic features which are required for an MVP of that sort. I was frustrated, I was disappointed, and worst of it, I was alone. So there was no external motivation to tap me on my back, to pat me on my back and say, young man, keep up, you can try, you can try. And till tomorrow, it is still a dream. It's not a reality. Is that a need in the society? Oh, yes. There are many laundry places without anything, without any software to help manage their business. But here is someone who had that brilliant idea, but because I did not select the tools, I did not select the right tools, the dream is still a dream. It has not manifested till now. So selection of tools is a very crucial aspect when you are considering building your MVP with coding tools. The next thing is concentrating on the MVP goal. Yes, concentrating on the MVP goal. This may not sound convincing, but trust me, when you start writing code as a developer, especially when you start interacting with all of these AI assistants like Copilot, or ChatGPT, Gemini, DeepSeek, Flow, when you start using all of these things to assist in your work, you will realize that they will generate very lovely code snippets that you may not really understand as per that time, and you may not see the need to delete them. So you will leave them there. And because some of your prompts were not very specific to give only the essential things that are specific for your MVP goal, you realize that you are accumulating things which will later on confuse you. Let me give you another practical example. Say 5 months ago, I was working with a few young guys to build an audit management platform. And I told one of them, he's my student, my one of my mentees. I said, set up this project for us and kickstart it. Let's join you once you have the fundamentals available. The guy said, okay. And just a few days ago, when I was reviewing the code, I saw a lot of things which this young guy had in the code base, not because we were using them, but because the AI assistants he was using had generated too many unnecessary stuffs, and they were just confusing and cluttering the whole place. These are very crucial things that can limit the successful or the quick prototyping of your MVP. It may not appear in the beginning as something that can take your time, but trust me, it will. Because as you start working on your MVP, you will get you accomplish some milestones, maybe deploy it for people to test. While they are testing, like in real life, they are giving you feedback, you are applying this feedback. But those chunks of code, those snippets of code which were useless from day one, they are still there, and you are mixing them up with new stuffs. It gets to a point where a code base which was initially 10 lines of code is now 100 lines of code, and you are very careful not to delete something that's going to break your product. And before you know it, you have 500 lines of code in a very simple MVP, and just 200 lines of code actually do the work. 300 lines, just useless stuff. These things will hinder quick prototyping, because any bug that comes after that time will take you at least twice the energy you originally need to solve the problem, because you have to navigate your way across chunks of text that is not very important. So these are quick prototyping tips when you are considering building your MVP with coding tools. The fourth thing I want to admonish when you are considering building your MVP with coding tools is establish a straightforward and scalable foundation. While this comes with experience, mentorship plays a very big role here. And I think that's why a program that Ignite Space has organized is a very great program. When I knew about it, I was very impressed with the whole idea, because in my time I didn't have anybody to look up to. I was just in the wild forest trying to find my way out. Probably if I had people to sit me down and give me some guidelines, maybe I would have been far today. And that's what I keep telling people, because mentorship, follow-up plays a very crucial role, not just in the success of your career as a developer, but in life as a whole. Of course, that's why we have parents, uncles, seniors in school who help to guide us, teachers who help to guide us. When you are considering developing your MVP with coding tools, establishing a straightforward and scalable foundation is very, very important. I cannot overemphasize this. It's very, very important. Why? Because first, let's take one side. Your MVP can succeed. It can succeed it can turn out to be a great and amazing product. People will embrace it. Now, if the foundation was not properly laid for to be scalable or to support some kind of traction, you'll find yourself spending a lot in the future to either rebuild the MVP or maintain what you've built. On the flip side, say it didn't succeed. if you didn't establish a good foundation, it will not even be easy to go back to your code or go back to your idea, go back to the drawing board, rethink the whole stuff, and see how to change stuff, see what was the problem and how to fix things. So whichever side you fall in, maybe your MVP failed or you succeeded, you see that establishing a straightforward and scalable foundation is a very good thing. Let me share another experience with you guys. About 5 years ago, we started a product for one of these utility company, one of our utility companies in Cameroon, Enyo. We built a product for them, and we didn't have time because it was such an urgent project. We had to finish it on time. So we didn't take enough time to lay some solid foundation. Well, what we laid for them was good for their use case. And we shipped it and it was great. Then we sat back and we're like, oh, this thing makes a lot of sense. Why don't we build this tool and give it out there for Cameroonian developers or merchants to use? And we felt it to be a very good idea. So one of our team leads took that project and in about 2 to 3 weeks or so, brought something up very interesting. We shipped it out. The tech community embraced it. Business people embraced it. We started getting a lot of traction. 2 years with the platform being online, we had a lot of traction. We had a lot of customers, transactions, things were happening on the platform. But there was a fundamental issue. The foundation was not scalable. The foundation was not scalable. And we had to sit back and go to the drawing board. In fact, I was actually the person with the pencil at that time because I was the only young child amongst the team. And the senior engineers were like, we have to rebuild this stuff from scratch. If you've not started writing code, you may not understand what it means to rebuild from scratch. But let's keep coding aside. Let's take a building. Say you get a contract to build a 5-story building, a 5-floor, and you succeed, only for the contractor or the house owner to come and tell you that when you laid the foundation, you did not use the right concrete or you did not use the right materials. So they have to destroy that foundation and rebuild. It's not only the time, it's not only energy, it's also the resources, the finances. In fact, your own mental stability to imagine that this stuff that you've built over this period of time will just crumble right in front of you to start again from square one. That's where we found ourselves. And we had just 9 months to do that. But that's not even the painful part. The first 6 months of those 9 months, we couldn't do anything because very few people even understood what was going under the hood in the existing product. Why? Because it was not straightforward and the foundation that was laid was not a scalable one. So guys, when you are considering building your MVP with coding tools, think of a straightforward and scalable foundation. When I started this particular point, I mentioned that this comes with experience, and that's where you have mentors. That's an amazing thing Ignite Studio has done for you, to make mentors available for you, to have a teacher available to support you, to follow you up. If you get to this stage, the fastest thing to do is to contact your mentors and speak to them, or show them your product and say, please, how can I lay a scalable foundation? It may take you a few hours or maybe a few days to do that, but it's worth it. Even if your product does not succeed, trust me, that foundation will go a very long way to help you. There is there is nobody who skips the MVP stage? Nobody skips the MVP stage. You see, you may not call it MVP, but if you think about it critically, you will realize that it's just an MVP. Okay, let's say you just got an idea. For example, a few years ago, I had an idea to build to replicate on-site education online with some extra features. Now, I did not go through all of this MVP, grammar, analysis, blah, blah, blah. No. I just said, this is something I need to do. One school contacted me and said, please do us something like this. We have looked for it. We have not seen it in the market. Build it and give it to us. I said, okay. I started. While I thought I was building a full-fledged product, of course, you will not build all features in a day. I had to first of all build the critical ones that they needed. And trust me, that's an MVP. What's it? A minimum viable product. The smallest version of your product, at least, which has the core features of the idea you are trying to bring to reality. So MVP is not some experiment. It's not like you go to the lab and you operate a rat to maybe study some parts of the rat, then you throw it. It's not a specimen. I don't know if they call it specimen or what. I don't know. I did not do those things, but I have a few guys who did it. Well, if you get what I'm saying, MVP is not something that you build and discard because you don't need it since you are building the actual thing. MVP is that first version of what you are building, which has its very core features available, or which has its very core features as the goal for that period of time. Say you want to build a car rental application or a ticketing system. If you want to build a car rental application, the first thing is that I should be able to come to the platform and see cars and maybe click on a car and see the detail and click on order. Even if nothing else happens, that's the minimum requirement of that product. If you build that and you put it online, or you can show to somebody, that's the minimum requirement of that product. Sometimes people can also call things like wireframes or user experience diagrams as MVP, but it goes a long way also to it goes a long way depending on the kind of product that you are building. So Martin, the very first version of that thing that you are building, you can call it an MVP. It's not necessarily an experiment which you can try out and discard. Maybe I did not highlight some of those things when I was talking about concentrating on the MVP goal, but I get that frustration. You start working on something and then an idea pops up and you're like, okay. Why don't I do it like this? And another person comes and says, no. Add this one there. Another person says, why not build it like this? And you stay in a loop for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, even a year, and you keep changing and changing and changing. That's because you did not concentrate on the MVP goal. So if you want to start a project next time, you sit back and recollect. After your analysis and design, you ask yourself, what are the fundamental requirements to get this my idea to reality? What are the basic things? For example, you take a human being. What are the fundamental requirements for somebody to be called a human? Have your hands and your legs and your eyes and your mouth, be able to breathe, have your heart, that is beating. Even if the human does not have dresses on them, they don't have clean teeth, they don't speak well, even if the person is still bushy and raw, just the fact that they can breathe, they have hands and legs, they are not crawling like an animal, or they have the shape and the form of a human, I think your MVP is okay. All of those ideas, we call it back office ideas. You gather all of them and put them in your back office. Not that you discard them away, but you keep them as things that you may consider later If you don't do that, your MVP will never ever materialize. Because when you change it today, there will be a need to change again tomorrow, and there will be a need to change again tomorrow. That's why every building has a building plan. Builders don't just get up and they start raising the building. No, there is an architect that comes up with a plan. There is no infrastructure out there that you see that is massive that does not have an architectural plan. The owner of the building or the person who has the project will first of all call an architect. The architect will sit down and draft the building plan and say, okay, we need it to be like this, we need it to be like this, we need it to be like this. This is how we want it to be. The owner of the house will agree. Then they will now call maybe a contractor or a builder to take it to the real world and start building. That's not only so that the house owner's dream can come to reality, but also that the builders can stay on a specific goal. Because if you leave them without a plan, they will be what they want, and you will never know what they want. So today you can come, they have put round windows, and you are like, no, I don't want round windows. And then they put square windows. Then you go out and you go and see round windows, and you say, hey, I love round windows. And you come back and they change round windows. But if the building plan says on this building we are putting round windows, of course, the architect will explain to the house owner why we need round windows here, why we need square windows here, why we need this here, why we need this here. So, Martin, the best thing to do when you are commencing with a project next time is you sit back, you do at least a comprehensive analysis of what you want to achieve. If you have a very big picture, you want to build the next Range Rover, identify first of all what are the fundamental requirements of a car. It can have 4 tires, 8 tires, it can have a bonnet, it can have a steering wheel, it should have brakes. Once you have this blueprint written down, stick to it, develop it. When you now get to the market, of course, the customers will shape it. I'm not sure Range Rover started the way it is. Rolls-Royce did not start the way it is. But as the customers are using and giving their feedback, so it is getting better. So that you don't take long to develop your MVP, have a clear and concise plan. Stick to the goal. When you are using, for example, AI tools, I think I also mentioned that when I was talking about concentrating on the MVP goal. When you are using AI tools, because there are some machines that spit out code, they can spit out stuff that you don't need. For example, you can tell an AI bot, please optimize this my search logic. And the thing is going to optimize the search logic, write unit test cases, write integration test cases, write other variations of the search, and just a bunch of nonsense. It's on your part as the developer to identify and say, oh, what do I need in this code? This is what I need. You pick it out and you clear the rest. Sometimes it can still be you, the developer, doing implementation. You get to a certain point. For example, you write you build a UI with, let's say, React, and it's nice, it's great. Then you go to Copilot, and Copilot gives you something better, or you go to v0.dev, and it gives you something better, and you're like, I prefer this one from v0.dev. Or what you need to do is you either replace the existing one or you stick to the existing one. Why I added this point is because I've seen many cases where guys will just come and comment, leave the unnecessary code there and put in the new one. So it's like taking fresh oil and mixing in a dirty container or in an old container, right? So you want to only look at or stick to what you actually need without leaving unnecessary stuff. Well, it takes some level of expertise to identify what is not needed. Of course, that's why you have mentors who can help review your code. You can have fellow developers, your peers who can be maybe advanced in some domains, who can review your stuff. So code review is something that will also help in identifying unnecessary stuff. The last point here is to forecast cost. So when using free plans, pay attention to unexpected costs and learn the good old ways. This is something I have identified. Well, it happened to me several times. I'll give you some cases that can make you laugh. I remember starting a product, a personal project, and I was like, AWS is very good, gives you 1 year free plan. So I just jumped on AWS, started some EC2 instances, connected some relational databases, RDS, and did a lot of stuff. I was so happy. And after like 3 months, I don't know if it was up to even three or 4 months, I came to my AWS billing dashboard and I saw that I was owing AWS about $600. And I was like, what's going on here? What am I owing $600 for? I'm trying to test out something and I'm owing $600. Then I realized that their free plan has the free limited, it has but some hours that are free, and not all services are free. And I was like, hey, really? Well, because I did not have $600, long story short, I abandoned the account with AWS. They sent me emails until I never responded. I never opened the account again. Then I decided to learn the good old ways. I remember those days when you have access to a server and you think of hosting your own MySQL database. And I asked myself, so what changed? Why don't I host my own SQL database? Is it that hard? And I realized that just by cutting that cost of hosting my own database, which of course I didn't have full control over it, I can do whatever I want to do with it, it reduced so much cost. And I experienced this not only on AWS, with a couple of other cloud providers. So when you are building your MVP with code tools, especially when you have minimal resources, try to forecast the cost. Try to investigate these free plans very well. And if you remember the good old ways, please try to apply them. Sometimes what developers are excited about, they are not even ready for. You go online and somebody is pitching to you how powerful AWS RDS is, relational database service. And you are like, oh, that is what I need. You are building an MVP for Christ's sake. You don't have any customer. Nobody is paying you. So why do you need that for? It's not as though when your database crashes, anybody will die or anything will be lost. So why not stick to the good old ways? These are some things that young developers don't consider. We just go to YouTube and you get excited with all the amazing news. Oh, there is one that is called Planet Scale. There is one that is called this. It gives you free database. It gives you free this. And you jump on it. One day I opened an account and my Vessel account, and I saw that it was like $40. And I asked myself, the product is not paying anybody. Why should I pay Vessel $40 when I could still deploy that thing on my simple cloud server with Nginx? And those are ways that are still there till today. These services are great, but not for MVP, not for even 5,000 customers or 2,000 customers, not for even 1,000 or 2,000 users. So these are some things that when you are considering building your MVP, you need to have them at the back of your mind. Think of cost. If I have to spin up this server continuously, how costly can it be? What can I do to optimize the cost? And you realize there are many ways. You know, there are many people today who cannot deploy a MySQL database on a hosting platform like Hostinger. And it may shock you to know that in some of those hosting platforms, it's free. You put it there for free. You don't pay anything. And it's not as though it's difficult to learn it. It's just that people are only excited about the new and shiny things that YouTubers sell to us. So that's like a word of advice there, some caution that when you are considering using code to build your MVP, and when you have minimal resources, forecast the cost, think about the cost. A small project that is not well planned in the future will be more costly than a big project that is well planned. Yes, because the energy you need to redo that stuff that was not well planned, it's not the end, it's not only the energy that will be applied, but think of the time and the energy that has been lost in the past. Okay, like in our case, we had to hire another senior engineer who had to work on this with the current engineers that we had. And they blocked 9 months. But very disturbingly, 6 months was unproductive, not because they were not working. They were just trying to get their heads around the cobweb. So if a project, sincerely speaking, if a project is well planned and thought about, 3 months is long. 3 months is a good time. It can be realized. In fact, the honest truth is that when these guys succeeded to figure out that product, it took the company less than a month to rebuild it. So we stayed for like 9 months only trying to figure out what was to be done. They succeeded to figure it all out. They drafted a new plan, and they took about maximum less than a month to bring out the MVP of that new plan. So the MVP of the new plan took less than a month. The MVP and version 1 of the new plan took about 2 months for a product that has existed for almost 3 years. Now they succeeded and did everything. The platform change, developers did not, like all the users out there, the people paying with the new, they did not experience any outage, but the whole architecture changed. That's because a new, well thought out solution was successful. Now just imagine they did not succeed to do that. So like Mr. Mesmer said, the cost of maintaining or the cost of fixing a small product in the future is way more than the cost of maintaining a big one. So like that's just all I'm going to add to that. If there are any specifics that you really want to know, maybe we'll talk about that one-on-one, since this is like
Yes,
public.
uh, as you did mention, that is what we call technical debt, and a lot of developers go through it, especially if you've not had the chance to start working in a company that already got that and that knows how to manage it. If you
Yeah,
if you open to work in such a company, your way of doing things will just be the way they taught you, like doing it the right way. But
yeah, yeah.
you Yes, because that's what you were taught. But you will never learn it the hard way, like other people had
To learn.
to learn it. And one
Mhm,
other thing is culture talking about MVP, which is great, right?
mhm.
Because a lot of the people out there, ideas builders, when they have some a product on an idea, they want to have it perfect before they put it
Yeah.
into the market. And
Yes.
I was listening at the video from this guy, the Netflix co-founder that was talking. He was talking about something like when you have an idea of a business, the first thing you have to do is just build the MVP and bring it to the market. Test it and see how the market responds to it. You get the point? So the
Yeah.
example he took was okay, if you want to sell, there was one person that came to him telling him that she wanted to build an online platform where people could, borrow clothes, some sort of,
Mhm, mhm.
yes, yeah, could borrow clothes. So the guy was like, oh, you don't need to build an online platform. And she was like, it will cost her much money to hire developers. She's not a programmer. Build the platform, put it online, and she's not sure that it's going to hit the market and be profitable. So the guy
Yeah.
was like, it's simple. You live, where do you live? You live in an apartment in the building, right? At the front, right, uh, just have something on the paper, right? Print it and and paste it at the front of your door. The
Yeah,
stuff should
though.
be, yeah. Who would
I've
like
heard
to?
about that.
So the thing will be like, will you like to borrow my clothes? And you put check boxes for people to come and check. Then after a week or two, you will know whether people are interested in your product. Now
Or
to
not.
learn, I want to ask this. In this your is this your description? You do not actually anyway, maybe it was not it's what I'm asking is out of this of scope, right? And my
Mhm.
question is this: how do we go about uh, getting the minimum viable product? Because at times, if you want to get a minimum viable product, you have challenges of hiring getting the team, the high team. Should we get
Mhm.
competent guys who are costing for the MVP? Should we
Mhm.
get motivated guys who are not costing? How do we go about realizing the MVP? What are the different strategies? Because you said after figuring the thing out, it took like 1 month to the team to realize it.
Mhm. Mhm.
But what is the team you have is not a good team? How do you go about producing your MVP? Or how do you go about getting the right team or whatsoever? That's my
Oh,
question.
okay. I want to talk on like three things. The first one is validating your idea. I think for the case of the example that you used, the lady who had to put a notice on her door, that was the stage of her validating her idea. Will people be willing to borrow your clothes? And if you want to, let's say if you want to apply that in our case, what I'll simply tell you is speak with people you want to build for and try to have a one-on-one meeting with them. Okay, for example, when we are building this product, part of the team were consumers of the product. So the consumer of the product is there, the programmer and the project managers are there, and we are discussing, and we are like, okay, so what do you want? What do you expect? This person gave his own vibe. We contacted like 4 or 5 guys, and then we now had a clear idea of what the customer actually wanted. So validating your idea is just simply meet the people you are building for. Getting a good team, trust me when I tell you that getting a good team sometimes it's not just straightforward. Yeah. And a good team also is not essentially people who know how to code. A good team is first of all people who buy and understand your idea, who relate with your idea and can be willing to walk the path of realizing your idea. When it gets to implementation, I believe that with what if somebody brings an idea to me now and the idea is, let's say, it's a potential one, it has been the idea has been validated, the business plan and all of that is there, I will not tell you to start with coding. Honestly speaking, honestly, I'll not tell you to start with coding. We have board.new, we have Replit, we have v0.dev, we have all of these things. If you really want to code, meet some code generator, generate a few lines of code, do the vibe coding that you can do for that minimum product. If you don't want to go that track, there are no code tools which are very great at doing things. But if you really see that no, this thing that you need to build needs some decent amount of coding experience, then you have to go on a hunt to look for talent, to look for skill. After you've validated that this journey of this idea that you are thinking like this is it can be realized. So now you've already thought about your idea, you validated your idea, you know what you need to the excuse me, you know the things you need to look out for when considering building your MVP with coding tools. How do you then choose your tools? Because choosing your tools is also important. How do you choose your tools? This is another place I've seen developers make a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes. People make a lot of mistakes, which in the long run, some of them still resort to technical depth. When choosing your tool, please, the first thing I'll tell you is ensure that the tool offers all the essentials you need to begin with without necessarily needing some external dependencies. So in the software engineering term, we say batteries included. I have seen guys who start developing as you guys going through the Ignite Space training program, and they are very excited with what they have learned, but they don't realize that what they have learned is not essentially the reality of the market. Sometimes you are introduced to tools not because they are the silver bullet of what you'll be doing in the real world, but because there are some gateways. They are actually some gateways to launch you into the real world. For example, if you started out as a developer and you were taught React, and then you learned Next.js, and by the time you have finished your training program, everything in your head is about React and Next.js, you will bring problem to companies. Your MVP will suffer. You have serious issues. Why? Because no tool is a silver bullet. Tools come to solve specific problems, but there are others that come with batteries included. When I'll show you my personally recommended examples, I'm going to elaborate especially more on this point. The next thing, since we are running out of time, the next thing is ease of use. How effortless can you begin with the technology or skill that you are considering? If you are a solopreneur, like you are the one-man army, you are the owner of your time, you are the only person building and thinking about your stuff, then you have to pay attention to ease of use. But if you are not a one-man army, then it's essential that you assemble your team after checking if the tool that you are using has batteries included. Check also how convenient it is for your team to use that tool, just so you don't get excited with news and then you the of technical debt. For example, you go online and you see that, oh, Bond is the new runtime that kills Node.js. And when you look at YouTube thumbnails, there are like 7 YouTube thumbnails that only talk about Bond. And the hype enters your head and you go and look for Bond. You don't even know the syntax. Nobody in your team knows it. But because you are excited with the news, you switch to it. It's problematic. Stick to what you can effortlessly use. It's very important. The next thing you should look out for when choosing a tool is community adoption. What's the community surrounding the tool you are using? How effortless it is to get somebody who can use that tool. For example, you say you want to build a gaming platform in Boya right now, and because Rust is a powerful programming language that is very low, that has so much performance gains, and you need high performance on your gaming application, you go and use Rust. How many Rust developers will you see in Boya? What's the community adoption around Boya with respect to Rust? Why not go for tools that have people in that community that they are familiar with? When your MVP has succeeded and is making waves, you can go and import people who know how to use Rust to rebuild the stuff for you. That is better understood because at least your MVP has come to life. It has come to the world. So when thinking about tools, think about the batteries included, the ease of use, and the community adoption. It's very, very important. Now, let me give some personal recommendations since we are talking about coding tools. It will not serve well that we close this presentation without talking about things related to coding. In no order, it's not like this one that he has put is the first, the next one is a second. No, in no order. These are the ones I recommend to start with because of ease of use, because of community adoption. Sometimes ease of use cannot also depend on you, the individual. It can depend on the community. For example, people can tell you that, not people, we all know that it's difficult to learn C compared to learning Python. So that's another example of ease of use. So I would prefer Python because it's easy to get started with. If you want to pick up some advanced concept in Python, it will take you shorter than the number of days or hours it will take you to get some advanced features or even some basic features in C. So PHP Laravel is a very powerful framework, having batteries included. It's is fully featured, I would say, because it's full stack. It comes with so many things that you don't need to do. It's not like you have to go and start organizing some controller stuffs or some database. It comes with a lot of things. And because it has been there, guys have developed a lot of well-recognized and very useful packages that can help make your life very easy. Very easy. Another option is Next.js, which is developed with TypeScript. It's also full stack. Ruby on Rails. Rails is the full stack. Rails is the full stack framework for the Ruby programming language. One gem that many people don't know is Django. In fact, this is one of the frameworks I started with from my early days while I was still in school and I was trying to hustle some funds. This is what I was using because Django gives you a free admin dashboard. You don't have to build an admin dashboard. And imagine you were supposed to build an admin dashboard for a project. You have a friend who has started with maybe just vanilla HTML, CSS with JavaScript and React, and is struggling to connect some backend and some front end. You on the Django side, your admin dashboard is there. You only need to customize it to your likeness and do the necessary things that you need to do. And boom, you have your front end, your back end, and admin dashboard. So these are things that will facilitate the quick prototyping of your MVP with very minimal resources. Very minimal resources. You can, if you are a solopreneur, you can use Django to build a SaaS application. Same with Laravel and these ones that I've mentioned. So that's for full stack. If you want to look at UI UX, these are stuff that are popular. I put v0.dev here because I use it a lot and I found it to be very useful. You don't have to go and start shifting paddings and margins and stuff like that. Go to V0, generate some very beautiful UI, stick it into the stuff. When it goes out there and the customer says this is not what I want, then you refine it to their taste. Figma is easy to use to create mockups and even generate code. Tailwind CSS, of course, we all know how popular and powerful it is, and the many frameworks built on top of it. So these are just my personal recommendations. Of course, these are personal recommendations. That's why I said personal. It must not be what you are familiar with. It must not be what you know. But if you are looking for something, I recommend checking out these ones. They make sense. In terms of cloud providers, I found these ones cheap and useful. I did not put Google here just because I just wanted to remain with the 3 in number. But Google is a great option. There are many great options, but DigitalOcean, straightforward, simple pricing, Hostinger, it can blow your mind. In fact, some time ago, I realized that the amount of server space and processors that Hostinger gives is far even more cheaper than others. And these are very useful tools. Amazon gives you 1 whole year of some very free services, Amazon Lambda, and EC2, and all of those things. So if you are thinking about cloud providers, maybe you have a SaaS product or something like that, these are very good ones. Of course, we are talking about how we can use code tools to develop our MVP. We can't stop that without talking about dev tools. This is where it all starts. It starts from the code editor. Which one is your option? There is Windsurf, there is Cursor, there is Z, VS Code, IntelliJ, WebStorm, PHP Storm. There are many of them. Whichever works for you, go for it. I love VS Code. It's easy to use. I've been using it for a long time. And now with Copilot in it, makes a lot of sense. Cursor is so amazing. Of course, it's expensive a little bit, but very amazing. IntelliJ, if you're a Java guy or some guy in the Java space, you know that IntelliJ is king in that area. So these are just the few tools which I think that if you consider them, Even if you don't know them, some are easy to start with, and you can quickly prototype something and show someone to test if your idea that you have in mind is realistic. I just decided to add this part here because I found this part very useful. It's not related directly to coding, but quickly putting out your MVP for testing is even the better way to validate your idea. Somebody can tell you by word of mouth that when you build this stuff, people will like it, they'll like it, they'll like it. 10 people tell you, build the MVP first quickly and put it out for people to test. It must not be beautiful, it must not be shiny. Just get something raw into their hands. You will know for sure if you're on track. Gather user feedback, analyze performance, iterate and improve. The goal is to be quick and be sure that you are not wasting time on something that nobody will ever use. That's the goal. Quickly prototype and get it out there. The best way to predict your future is to take action today. That's why I keep emphasizing quickly prototype. Quickly prototype. Thank you very much.